You're listening to WGSN-DB, Going Solo Network, Singles Talk Radio channel, where we take a lighthearted and candid approach to discussions on the journey of relationship loss, divorce, parenting, being single, relationships building, dating, and yes, sex. Join our listeners and begin living your best life.
Welcome to Divorce, Dating, and Empowered Living with your host, Rosalind Sadaka. Join Rosalind each week on a journey toward overcoming life's many challenges to achieve peace, empowerment, and positive transformation. It's time to relax, unwind, and transform your life with Rosalind Sadaka.
Hello, everyone. This is Rosalind Sadaka. I'm founder of the Child-Centered Divorce Network, and you're listening to Divorce, Dating, and Empowered Living with Rosalind Sadaka on WGSN-DB, the Going Solo Network. As always, we discuss important issues relevant for people who are divorced or divorcing, who are dating after divorce, who are moving on with their life and want to do things in the best possible way for them and always to protect the children that they love. So today is no different, and I'm very honored to have with us a wonderful guest. Her name is Dr. Allison Bell, and she's a clinical psychologist who has spent 3 decades working with children and families, often in the context of separation and divorce. And one of the ongoing struggles that divorced parents face, as we all know, is how to navigate disagreements, how to diffuse tensions, and how to still find ways to cooperate with one another in your parenting roles. So Dr. Bell is going to speak with us about this issue and offer some guidelines and strategies for parents. So I want to welcome Dr. Allison Bell.
Thank you so much, Roz. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you. Thank you. So let's jump in because we have a lot to cover. And I wanted to ask you first about co-parenting. What's the job of co-parenting? What does that mean?
Great question. I think about co-parenting as a shift in the relationship that parents have after divorce, frames what they're doing more as a business relationship. And that's the job part in quotation marks. We sometimes think that just because we have children that therefore we are parents. But really, there's a lot more to it than that. The act of just having created children in some ways is not what makes you a parent. It is in the biological sense, but it isn't in the social, emotional, and moral development sense. So that job of raising children and learning how to do that well and with a certain measure of compassion as well as a certain measure of discipline, a warm and an open engagement with the children, but also with one another. That job continues even after separation and divorce. And I think that lots of parents, when they are in the process of separating, understandably become very caught up in their own emotions and their emotional reactions to one another. The work of parenting can easily get lost. And when that happens, the only people who really suffer are the kids, right? They still are looking to both of their parents and looking for not only physical access to both of their parents, but just as importantly, emotional access to both of their parents. And when parents get embroiled in their own emotional struggles with one another, I think they really lose sight of that parenting work. That parenting work is a wide open vista in front of them, and it is one to be embraced and explored. It invites creativity. It invites new systems and new ways of thinking about things. Oftentimes, parents, in figuring out parenting plans and access schedules, start out by feeling like, well, we always did it this way, so of course that's the way it's going to have to be. And I become that voice in the middle that sometimes says, well, wait a sec, I hear that things always happened in a certain way. That's been the routine or the expectation. But this is an opportunity, and it's an opportunity potentially to set up new and perhaps very different ways of doing things going forward. And that part can be exciting.
Yes,
so that's how I think of the job.
I imagine while it's exciting, for some people it might be very frightening and bring up a lot of anxiety in dealing with it. So part of the process is getting both parents to understand that changes and adapting can be good and positive, especially during and after a divorce. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. All of us can be somewhat squeamish about change. I think that's partly just the nature of being human, helping people sort out how they can move beyond their anxiety in order to allow changes to happen. And sometimes that needs to be incremental change rather than, huge leap. And that's fine. There are ways to build in incremental changes when you're talking about parenting plans and access too, particularly when you stay away from courthouses, and try to think about those things creatively in a negotiated way.
And as you know, the Child-Centered Divorce Network definitely encourages people to stay away from the courthouses and do whatever you can, make the choices that are going to be focused on the well-being of the entire family. So let me ask you another question, because we've just been talking about change and being adaptable to that. At the same time, I know that consistency is really important for our children. Can you speak to that?
Certainly. I always there are actually three things what I like to think of as pillars of child development and parenting work, and that is predictability, reliability, and consistency. Children in their own development really thrive when there is structure of some kind. That is really a very open word in terms of definition. Complete chaos generally does not serve children well. They are typically looking for where the boundaries are and will push them, find where those parameters really are. Do you really mean it if I do X? So that behavior in and of itself really speaks the needs that children generally have for being able to predict what's going to happen, to rely on what they've been told is going to happen, and to know that things happen in patterns, meaning there's consistency. Such and such happens every Tuesday and Friday, or such and such happens only when we have a holiday weekend. Consistency when parents have separated. Sometimes what happens is that parents in their disagreement decide to have very different rules in their homes, and they may do things in ways that they did not do them before. That can be confusing for children. One of the ways out of the confusion is not to necessarily insist that as parents you must do the same things the same ways one another, because you're different people. One of the things that divorcing does is it reminds us about who we are as individuals and can strengthen our own sets of values, and there is less of a compulsion to have to mesh values with somebody else. Marriage is what meshes people, but divorce separates people. We tend to become more of ourselves when we've separated. The consistency then that children are looking for is not necessarily that what goes on in each house be identical. That's probably too much to ask or to expect, but rather that within each home, the parent who is running that home has a level of consistency within that household. So the expectations are known. There's predictability to what is going to happen. A child can relax and feel more secure in the sense of known quantities, known boundaries, rather than feeling anxious by the unpredictability from moment to moment or day to day.
You just made a very important point that isn't always clear for co-parents. So I love that you brought that up, and the fact that the consistency that children need doesn't mean it has to be uniform in both homes, which is very unrealistic after a divorce. It's just a consistency within each parent being who they are and having the rules and values in their home. That's what the children need. They can adapt to changes that are different in mom and dad's house as long as there's consistency in the homes when they're with that parent. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, I agree with you. Too often people misconstrue the idea of consistency or predictability, that they feel then that they're going to be boxed into having to be alike.
Yes, or force your act to do things the way you do it or the way it was done in our house.
That's right. And it has aspects of control, right? Laden in that language, and people generally bristle at that, and that's part of what they are looking to get away from in a divorce situation.
Exactly.
So, they don't want to feel they're being controlled.
So that was a very important point. And before we go on with any other, we are going to take a real quick break. This is Rosalind Sedaka with Divorce, Dating, and Empowered Living on WGSN-DB, the Going Solo Network, and we will be right back.
Hi, this is Cece Schatz. I'm the doyen of relationship building, and I want to welcome you to Going Solo Network, and I want to invite you to a brand new site that we established. It's called goingsolotogether.com. And what this site is, it's really developed through the coronavirus, something to really help connect you with other people, because like you, I'm home sitting all by myself wondering what the heck am I going to do? And so what better way to be able to connect with singles and talk about very interesting topics. So we've got wonderful forum on there where you can talk about very informative topics that really kind of push your button and kind of move you to the next level of your development growth. And then also we have our wonderful chats where you can really connect with the members that are on the site, hopefully establishing a wonderful relationship. And then, of course, we have our terrific events, both online and in person, when we're able to start getting out and about. We're going to be connecting all of this in our brand new way of Going Solo Together, but also in some of our other Going Solo network. What we're going to do is establish a whole brand new environment for you so that you connect with singles going through whatever transition you're going through. And we hope that you do it in a very fun, laughable, enjoyable way. So we hope that you'll connect with us on goingsolotogether.com. It's completely free for you for 6 months. And then after that, we're going to make it very economical so that you can stay with us and continue the wonderful connections that you have made right here on Going Solo Network. So again, I want to invite you to join me right over there on goingsolotogether.com. I look forward to meeting you, talking with you, and really enjoying a wonderful relationship that we're going to be building together. So I'll see you there, goingsolotogether.com. Bye for now.
Hello, everyone. This is Rosalind Sadaka. You're listening to Divorce, Dating, and Empowered Living on WGSN-DB, the Going Solo Network. And we have with us a wonderful guest today. Her name is Dr. Allison Bell. She's a clinical psychologist, and she does a lot of work in the divorce arena. So we're asking her some important questions to help us unravel the challenges that parents and co-parents face when they're dealing with divorce and all the decades to follow. So, Dr. Bell, one of the questions that's very important for all of us to think about is asking about how parents can develop better communication. I know that's a charged issue, but share your wisdom with us.
Thank you. It is a charged issue. I think that's really well said. I would say it's the number one issue that I see in post-divorce parenting, that parents recognize that they do not communicate well, and probably that was part of where they got into difficulties with one another in the marriage. And without intervention, there's no reason why that wouldn't continue to be a problem, right? Because it's only intervention that sort of teaches or trains people to see that they can do something differently. There's the old adage in the world of people who work with divorcing couples, and that is, unless there's some kind of intervention, growth, work of some kind, your divorce is going to look just like your marriage looked. You're the same people. Why would it look any different, right? So communication is key. You're no longer living in the same household. You have this job of raising healthy children, and you want to do it the best ways that you both can. And that is, first and foremost, it's a common goal that you both have. Assuming that you love your children, there may be many other disagreements that linger, but that's a place of commonality between parents. And certainly in my work, I strive to remind parents that this is a shared focal point. Sometimes I will do that by asking for photographs of their kids and, placing them on the coffee table or something between us, right? So that the children are brought into the room through their photographs, and parents are reminded, right, we're here talking about them and what's good for them, not necessarily just about me as the adult, right? So one of the things that I see often is, and this is not just for parents, but this is in relationships in general, people talk too fast and kind of forget the rules of turn taking. And so improving communication between people often means slowing down. Most of us, particularly if we get, passionate about something, emotionally turned on about something, we tend to know what it is we want to say. There are certain points we want to make, and we're going to find ourselves potentially talking over anybody else in order to be heard and get our point across. That is never going to be a way to be really understood, and it is never going to be a way to solve a problem with another person. And since the bulk of parenting involves problem solving together, you have to be able to really listen to one another. Most of us here, our ears work, but really listening happens less often. So there is this idea called active listening, which is a skill set that is teachable and learnable, and parents can really benefit from learning, A, how to slow down the tempo of the communication, and B, how to really take in what the other person is saying. In order to take in what the other person is saying, you have to first suspend your own need to talk. And you also have to suspend your judgment about what the other person is about to say, right? So you can't be ready with an eye roll or a snicker, at the first words that come out of the other person's mouth. So there are ways of learning how to talk in ways that other people can actually hear. And when parents are having difficulty communicating, that is one of the things that I will teach. There are tools also in the divorce and post-divorce world, online tools that are helpful when parents are still very emotionally triggered by one another and having difficulty speaking to one another. So as an example, there is a tool called Our Family Wizard that allows parents to do many of the tasks of parenting communication online. So they can email each other, they can create calendars with each other, all of the things that revolve around.
I like those tools as well. They're very useful and they deflect conflict. And one I like to use is called Two Houses. They're online and they simplify life communication for the co-parents. So thank you for reminding us about all of that. Before we run out of time, I wanted to give you an opportunity to let people know how they can find you.
I have a website. It is at www.drallisonbell.com. That's drallisonbell.com. I am also on the Psychology Today website. I have a blurb up there. I'm on LinkedIn. From the professional perspective, I can be found there.
Excellent.
The best way, generally, for people to reach me directly is my phone, and I'm happy to give that number. Mm-hmm. It is 914-497-5113.
Thank you. That's Dr. Allison Bell. And I have one last question in a few minutes, if we can talk about this, because it's another big one. How can parents learn to understand each other better? Understanding is so pivotal to any good communication.
Yes, it's pivotal to any good relationship, right? Mm-hmm. Again, it's not parenting specific. It's about healthy relationships with other people. So what I think is important for parents to remember is to strive for acceptance of one another. If your goal is to convert the other parent, to make them see the world the way you see it, you will be drained and exhausted, and it's a lose-lose proposition.
Mm-hmm.
There's tons of research out there, particularly these days, that speaks to how, trying to sort of preach to people and convert them to your way of thinking doesn't work. And in fact, the only thing that has a chance of working is seeking understanding. So in order to try to understand the other person, it's important to talk, and to talk often, perhaps more often than you think you should as a divorced person. But when you're parenting, again, from the children's perspective, knowing that their parents are talking often and talking about them is a good thing. It really creates a sense of security for children and reminds them that their parents are still on board and that their parents' number one mission is to raise them. So talking often, making requests rather than making demands. A lot of communication doesn't go awry because of the content per se, but more about the tone. So it's much more effective to ask for something or to express a curiosity about something rather than to demand and blame and accuse. When people feel blamed and hear accusations, they immediately shut down, and that's going to be the end of the conversation. But if you can, even if it's something that, is somewhat upsetting to you, if you can approach that issue with, so I would like to really try to understand what happened here, and I'm confused. I'm wondering if you can help me, see this the way you experienced it. Tell me more about it.
Yes.
It's a way that opens the possibility for understanding. And the last thing that I would say is it's very important to separate feelings from behavior. Otherwise, feelings are going to end up dictating actions. And that never goes to a good place, particularly in post-divorce parenting life. So, if you're having a lot of feelings, it's not that you shouldn't have your feelings. Absolutely, have them. But take them to your friends, to your other family members, to a therapist. Take them elsewhere. In the job of parenting together, most often you're working on problem solving and you're working on tasks. And your feelings, if they are too intense, will get in the way.
So focus instead on action, what the specific situations that you're dealing with.
That's right. Right. It's more of a problem-solving model, right?
Absolutely. Well, you've been a wealth of wonderful information, and your voice tone and demeanor are a reflection of what you're talking about. You speak clearly and slowly so people can hear and absorb what you're saying, and you give them an opportunity to not only understand, but if they had a question, there was their ability to step into that dialogue. So you are a perfect example of what you're teaching, and thank you so much for that. Again, we've been talking with Dr. Allison Bell, clinical psychologist who is an expert on all things related to divorcing and co-parenting, and we are so grateful to have you here today, Dr. Bell.
Thank you so much, Roz, for the opportunity. It was totally a joy.
Thank you. And you're listening to Divorce, Dating, and Empowered Living with Rosalind Sadaka. And as you know, I'm founder of the Child-Centered Divorce Network. And you could find my e-books, e-courses, and programs at childcentereddivorce.com. And until next time, you're listening to WGSN-DB, the Going Solo Network. Take care, everyone.
You're listening to WGSN-DB, Going Solo Network, Singles Talk Radio channel, where we take a lighthearted and candid approach to discussions on the journey of relationship loss, divorce, parenting, being single, relationships building, dating, and yes, sex. Join our listeners and begin living your best life.